In the year 2147, Earth was no longer just a planet of humans. It had become a hub for interstellar travelers, a place where beings from distant stars came to trade, study, and sometimes even settle. Humanity had reached new heights in technology, building cities that floated among the clouds and ships that could travel faster than light. Despite all these advancements, there was one part of Earth that remained untouched, almost sacred: the oceans. No alien species dared to enter them, and no explanation had ever been given. The reason behind this strange behavior was a mystery that puzzled scientists, historians, and diplomats alike. Laura Bennett sat at her desk in a dimly lit room inside a government facility in San Francisco. She was a marine biologist, someone who spent most of her life studying the creatures that lived beneath the waves. Her focus had always been on dolphins, animals she considered to be some of the smartest non-human beings on the planet. But tonight, Laura wasn't reading about dolphin behavior or analyzing sound recordings. Instead, she was staring at a dusty old file labeled classified. It had taken her weeks to get permission to access it, and now that she finally held it in her hands, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and unease. The file contained documents that were decades old, written in a language that seemed outdated even for someone like Laura, who was used to reading technical papers. As she flipped through the pages, one sentence caught her eye. Incident involving cetacean intervention results in loss of naval vessel. At first, she thought it was a mistake. How could dolphins, graceful and playful as they were, have anything to do with sinking a battleship? Curious, she kept reading, her eyes scanning the faded ink for more details. What she found shocked her. According to the report, an event had occurred several decades earlier when a battleship belonging to the United States Navy encountered trouble during a routine patrol. The ship, which was equipped with advanced weaponry and sensors, suddenly began malfunctioning. Its crew reported hearing strange clicking sounds coming from the water, louder and more intense than anything they'd ever experienced. Before they could figure out what was happening, the ship was struck by multiple explosions, each one precise enough to cripple its systems without causing unnecessary casualties. The survivors claimed they saw shadows moving swiftly beneath the waves, shapes that looked eerily like dolphins. Laura leaned back in her chair, trying to make sense of what she'd just read. Dolphins didn't have the ability to sink battleships. Or did they? She knew they were intelligent creatures capable of solving problems and communicating with each other using clicks and whistles. But this went beyond intelligence. This suggested planning, coordination, and perhaps even access to tools or technology far beyond anything humans had imagined possible. She decided to share her discovery with Daniel Carter, a colleague who specialized in military history. Daniel was known for his meticulous attention to detail and his knack for connecting seemingly unrelated pieces of information. When Laura explained what she'd found, he listened intently, his brow furrowing as he processed the implications. "If this is true," he said slowly, "it changes everything we know about dolphins and maybe even about Earth itself." Together, they began piecing together fragments of reports scattered across various archives. Some mentioned unusual activity near underwater ruins, while others referenced sightings of glowing objects on the seafloor. None of it made complete sense, but one thing became clear. Whatever had happened all those years ago, it wasn't just a random act of nature. Something, or someone, had orchestrated it. Word of their investigation eventually spread, reaching the ears of Benjamin Hayes, an engineer who worked on submersibles designed for deep-sea exploration. Ben was skeptical at first, dismissing the idea of dolphins possessing advanced capabilities as pure science fiction. But when Laura and Daniel showed him the classified documents, his skepticism turned into curiosity. He offered to join their team, bringing with him not only his expertise but also access to cutting-edge equipment that could withstand the crushing pressures of the ocean's depths. Rachel Morgan, a linguist specializing in decoding animal communication, rounded out the group. Rachel had spent years studying whale songs and dolphin vocalizations, searching for patterns that might reveal hidden meanings. When she heard about the possibility of dolphins communicating in ways that hinted at advanced intelligence, she jumped at the chance to be involved. If we can crack this code, she told the others, we might uncover secrets that have been hiding right under our noses for centuries. With their team assembled, Laura, Daniel, Ben, and Rachel prepared for an expedition unlike any other. Their destination was a remote area of the Pacific Ocean, where the battleship incident had allegedly taken place. They would use a research vessel called the Oceanus, a state-of-the-art ship equipped with drones, sonar arrays, and submersibles capable of diving thousands of feet below the surface. The goal was simple, yet ambitious: to observe dolphin behavior up close and gather evidence that could either confirm or debunk the claims in the classified files. As they set sail, the air aboard the Oceanus buzzed with anticipation. Each member of the team brought their own questions and theories to the table. Laura wondered if dolphins truly possessed the cognitive abilities described in the documents, while Daniel speculated about the historical significance of such a discovery. Ben focused on ensuring their equipment functioned properly, knowing that malfunctions could jeopardize the entire mission. And Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the potential linguistic breakthroughs waiting to be uncovered. Their first few days at sea passed uneventfully. The team conducted routine tests, calibrating their instruments and mapping the surrounding waters. But on the fourth night, something unusual happened. As they reviewed footage captured by one of their underwater drones, they noticed something strange. A pod of dolphins swimming in perfect formation around what appeared to be metallic objects embedded in the seafloor. These objects pulsed faintly with light, emitting low-frequency vibrations that resonated through the water. Rachel immediately began analyzing the audio recordings, her fingers flying over her keyboard as she isolated individual clicks and whistles. To her amazement, she detected patterns that resembled language, not human language, but something structured and deliberate. Meanwhile, Ben examined samples collected near the glowing artifacts, discovering traces of alloys that didn't match anything found in nature. Whatever these objects were, they weren't natural formations. The team gathered in the ship's lab to discuss their findings. Laura stared at the images on the screen, her mind racing with possibilities. "This changes everything," she said, quietly. "If dolphins are working with technology like this, then they're not just intelligent, they're operating on a level we've never even considered." Daniel nodded, his expression serious. "And if aliens know about this, it might explain why they stay away from Earth's oceans. They're respecting boundaries we didn't even realize existed." For the first time, the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. The mysterious reluctance of alien species to enter Earth's seas wasn't due to fear of humans. It was respect for the guardians already living there. The research vessel Oceanus rocked gently on the waves as dawn broke over the horizon. The team had spent the night reviewing the strange footage captured by their underwater drones, and now they prepared for a closer look at the mysterious objects glowing faintly on the seafloor. Laura Bennett stood on the deck, her eyes fixed on the water below. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something monumental, something that could rewrite humanity's understanding of its own planet. "Daniel," Carter joined her, holding a clipboard with notes from the previous night's analysis. "We need to be careful," he said, his tone cautious but firm. "If these dolphins really are working with advanced technology, or if someone else gave it to them, we don't know how they'll react to us poking around." Laura nodded, her gaze still locked on the ocean. "I know. But we can't turn back now. If what we saw last night is real, then we're dealing with something far bigger than just dolphins. This could change everything." Benjamin Hayes, the engineer, was already in the control room, running final checks on the submersible. He had designed the small craft himself, ensuring it was equipped with reinforced hulls and high-resolution cameras capable of capturing even the tiniest details in the dim light of the deep. Rachel Morgan sat beside him, adjusting headphones connected to the hydrophones mounted on the submersible. Her job would be to listen for any unusual sounds or signals emitted by the dolphins or the glowing objects. As the submersible descended into the depths, the team gathered around monitors inside the Oceanus, watching live footage transmitted from its cameras. At first, there was nothing but darkness, interrupted only by the occasional flicker of bioluminescent creatures drifting past. But as the submersible approached the seafloor, the scene changed dramatically. The metallic objects came into view, their surfaces smooth and polished, despite being buried partially in sand. They pulsed rhythmically with soft blue light, casting an eerie glow across the surrounding area. Rachel adjusted the audio feed, isolating the low-frequency vibrations emanating from the objects. To her surprise, the clicks and whistles she had identified earlier were growing louder, more complex. She leaned closer to the microphone, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like they're communicating with the objects," she murmured half to herself. "But I've never heard anything like this before." Back on the surface, Daniel scribbled notes furiously, trying to keep up with Rachel's observations. Laura watched the screen intently, her heart pounding as the submersible's cameras panned across the seafloor. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. A pod of dolphins appeared, gliding effortlessly through the water toward the glowing artifacts. They moved in perfect synchronization, their sleek bodies cutting through the currents with grace and precision. "They're not afraid of the objects," Laura whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're interacting with them." The dolphins circled the artifacts, their movements deliberate and purposeful. One of them paused directly above one of the glowing structures, emitting a series of rapid clicks that seemed to resonate through the water. Almost instantly, the object responded, its pulsing light intensifying briefly before returning to its steady rhythm. Rachel gasped, pulling off her headphones. "Did you see that? It's responding to them. These aren't random noises, they're commands." Ben frowned, his hands flying over the controls as he maneuvered the submersible closer. "Let's get a sample," he said. "If we can figure out what these things are made of, maybe we can understand how they work." The submersible extended a robotic arm, carefully scraping a fragment of material from the surface of one of the artifacts. As soon as the sample was secured, however, the dolphins reacted. Several of them turned sharply, their bodies twisting, in unison as they swam toward the submersible. Their clicking grew louder, almost deafening through the hydrophones, and the water around the craft began to shimmer with strange ripples. Guys?" Ben's voice was tense as he glanced at the monitors. "I think we might have overstayed our welcome." Before anyone could respond, the submersible's system started malfunctioning. Lights flickered, screens went dark, and the robotic arm froze mid-motion. Alarms blared throughout the Oceanus as the team scrambled to regain control. On the monitors, the dolphins surrounded the submersible, their movements faster and more aggressive than before. "We need to pull it back," Daniel shouted, his face pale. "Now!" Ben worked frantically, his fingers flying over the controls as he tried to override the malfunctions. Slowly, painfully, the submersible began to ascend, its progress hindered by whatever force the dolphins or the artifacts were exerting. The team held their breath, watching as the glowing objects faded into the distance and the dolphins finally dispersed, disappearing into the shadows of the deep. By the time the submersible broke the surface, everyone aboard the Oceanus was silent. The artifact sample lay safely inside its container, but the encounter had left them shaken. Laura stared at the vial, her mind racing with questions. What had they just witnessed? Were the dolphins truly in control of the artifacts? Or were they simply intermediaries for something or someone else? Rachel broke the silence first. "Whatever those dolphins are doing down there, it's not natural. Not entirely, anyway. That language, those patterns, it's like they've been taught," Daniel nodded grimly. "And whoever taught them didn't want us getting too close." Ben rubbed his temples, clearly exhausted. "Well, one thing's for sure. We're lucky to have gotten out of there in one piece. If those dolphins wanted to stop us, they could have done a lot worse." Laura took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "We need to analyze this sample. If we can figure out what these artifacts are made of, maybe we can learn where they came from or who made them." Over the next several hours, the team worked tirelessly in the ship's lab. Ben examined the fragment under a microscope, identifying traces of alloys that defied conventional metallurgy. Rachel replayed the audio recordings, searching for any clues hidden within the dolphin communications. Meanwhile, Daniel cross-referenced their findings with historical documents, looking for any mention of similar phenomena. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deck of the Oceanus, Laura stepped outside for some fresh air. She leaned against the railing, staring out at the endless expanse of water. The weight of what they had discovered pressed heavily on her shoulders. Dolphins, once thought to be playful animals with limited intelligence, were now revealed to be something far greater, guardians of secrets buried deep beneath the waves. She thought about the Battleship incident described in the classified files, the warnings issued by survivors who claimed dolphins had orchestrated the attack. At the time, no one had believed them. Now it all made sense. The dolphins weren't acting out of malice, they were protecting something important enough to warrant the destruction of a human warship. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Rachel, holding a cup of coffee in her hands. "You okay?" she asked gently. Laura sighed, turning to face her friend. "I don't know. Everything we thought we knew. It's falling apart. What happens when the rest of the world finds out? How do we explain this?" Rachel hesitated, then shrugged. "Maybe we don't have to explain everything right away. For now, we just focus on the facts. We gather evidence, piece together the story, and figure out what to do next." Laura nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. One step at a time. As the stars emerged overhead, the Oceanus drifted quietly across the darkened waters. Below them, the dolphins continued their silent vigil, guardians of a mystery older than humanity itself. The next morning, the team aboard the Oceanus gathered in the ship's lab to discuss their findings. The artifact sample lay on a steel tray under bright lights, its surface gleaming faintly despite being removed from the water. Laura Bennett stared at it, her mind racing with possibilities. The material was unlike anything they had ever seen. Smooth yet impossibly strong, with traces of elements that didn't match Earth's natural composition. It was clear now that these objects were not formed by nature, but crafted by intelligent hands. Rachel Morgan sat nearby, headphones still draped around her neck after hours of analyzing dolphin vocalizations. She had been working tirelessly to decode the patterns she recorded during their encounter with the glowing artifacts. Her voice broke the silence as she shared her latest discovery. "I think I've found something," she said, her tone cautious, but excited. "The clicks and whistles, they're not random. They're structured like sentences." Daniel Carter leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the notes Rachel had scribbled on a pad. "Sentences? You mean they're actually speaking?" "In a way, yes," Rachel replied. "It's not language in the human sense, but it's communication. And some parts seem to repeat, the same sequences over and over again. I think they're naming things, maybe even giving instructions." Benjamin Hayes, who had been examining the artifact sample under a microscope, looked up. "So you're saying these dolphins are using this alien tech? Like, operating it?" "It's possible," Laura interjected. "Think about it. Dolphins already have incredible sonar abilities. If someone or something enhanced those abilities, taught them how to interact with technology, they could do things we can't even imagine." Daniel frowned, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. But who would teach them? And why? No one had an answer. The mystery deepened with every new piece of evidence they uncovered. Yet, as unsettling as it was, the team couldn't deny the implications. Dolphins weren't just intelligent creatures. They were part of something far greater, something ancient and hidden beneath the waves. Later that day, the team decided to dive again, this time focusing on the ruins surrounding the artifacts. Their earlier scans had revealed structures buried in the sand, jagged outlines hinting at walls or towers long since collapsed. The idea that these ruins might hold clues about the origin of the artifacts and perhaps the dolphins' connection to them was too compelling to ignore. As the submersible descended, the cameras captured glimpses of the ruins emerging from the gloom. Strange carvings covered the stone surfaces, intricate designs etched into the rock. Some resembled marine life, dolphins, whales, even octopuses, but others depicted shapes that were harder to identify. Geometric patterns spiraled across the walls, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Rachel adjusted the hydrophones, listening intently for any sounds coming from the ruins. At first, there was only silence. Then, faint vibrations began to echo through the water. They were low and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The sound grew louder as the submersible approached one of the larger structures, a massive archway partially buried in the sand. "Look at this," Ben said, pointing to the monitor. On the screen, the archway shimmered with the same blue light as the artifacts. Embedded in its center was what appeared to be a symbol, a circle surrounded by lines radiating outward like a sunburst. Laura's breath caught in her throat. "That looks familiar." Daniel nodded, flipping through the classified files they had brought with them. He stopped on a page containing a sketch made decades earlier by survivors of the Battleship incident. The drawing showed a similar symbol, described as having been carved into the hull of the ship before it sank. "This is it," he said quietly. "Whatever destroyed that battleship left its mark." The realization sent a chill through the room. The team exchanged uneasy glances, each member grappling with the weight of what they were uncovering. These ruins, the artifacts, the dolphins, all of it pointed to an alliance between two intelligent species, one native to Earth and the other unknown. Back on the surface, the team spent hours poring over their findings. Rachel worked tirelessly to translate more of the dolphin vocalizations, piecing together fragments of meaning from the complex patterns. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The dolphins weren't merely using the artifacts, they were maintaining them, protecting them. And the messages they transmitted suggested they were following orders, or perhaps fulfilling a promise. "It's like they're guardians," Laura said finally, breaking the silence. "They're defending something sacred." "But sacred to whom?" Daniel asked. "If these ruins belong to an ancient civilization, where did they go? Why leave their technology behind?" Rachel hesitated, then spoke softly. "Maybe they didn't leave. Maybe they became part of the ocean itself." Her words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Could it be that the mysterious species hadn't vanished but instead merged with the environment, leaving behind echoes of their presence in the form of glowing artifacts and carvings? If so, the dolphins might not be their students but their successors, entrusted with the responsibility of safeguarding their legacy. As days turned into weeks, the team continued their exploration, venturing deeper into the ruins and uncovering more evidence of the ancient alliance. They found chambers filled with strange devices, some still active, emitting soft hums and pulses of light. In one chamber, they discovered murals depicting scenes of cooperation between dolphins and humanoid figures clad in flowing robes. The figures appeared to be teaching the dolphins, guiding their movements as they interacted with machines. Each discovery brought new questions, but also new clarity. The dolphins' advanced behavior wasn't the result of evolution alone, it was the product of deliberate instruction. An alien race long forgotten by history had chosen Earth's oceans as their sanctuary and entrusted its defense to the most intelligent creatures they could find. Laura stood on the deck of the Oceanus, one evening staring out at the horizon. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the full picture remained elusive. What she did know was this: humanity wasn't the only intelligent species on Earth, and the dolphins, once dismissed as playful animals, were far more than they seemed. The final breakthrough came when Rachel managed to isolate a key phrase in the dolphin communications. It repeated often, always accompanied by a specific sequence of clicks and whistles. When translated, it read, "We protect the balance." For the team, those 4 words carried profound significance. The dolphins weren't aggressors. They were stewards, tasked with preserving harmony in the ocean, an ecosystem vital not just to Earth but possibly to the entire cosmos. Their actions, including the destruction of the battleship, weren't acts of war but warnings meant to deter interference. As the Oceanus prepared to return to port, the team faced a difficult decision. Should they share their discoveries with the world risking panic and misunderstanding? Or should they keep the truth hidden, allowing the Dolphins to continue their silent vigil undisturbed? In the end, they chose a middle path. They would release their findings selectively, sharing them only with organizations capable of handling the information responsibly. Governments, space agencies, and scientific institutions would learn the truth about Earth's oceans. But the public would remain unaware, at least for now. On the final night of their journey, Laura stood beside Rachel, watching the stars reflect on the water's surface. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. Rachel smiled faintly. "We gave people a chance to understand. That's all we can do." Far below, the dolphins swam silently, their clicks and whistles echoing through the depths. Guardians of the deep, protectors of a secret older than time itself. The Oceanus docked at a quiet port on the California coast, its arrival unnoticed by the public. The team had decided to keep their findings secret for now, sharing them only with trusted organizations. But as they stepped off the ship, carrying hard drives filled with data and samples of the mysterious artifacts, they couldn't shake the feeling that their lives, and perhaps the world, would never be the same. Laura Bennett led the group into a secure facility where government officials and scientists waited anxiously to hear their report. The room was dimly lit, with large screens mounted on the walls displaying images of the glowing artifacts and the ruins beneath the waves. Laura took a deep breath before speaking, her voice steady, but filled with the weight of what she was about to reveal. "We've uncovered evidence of an ancient alliance," she began. "Dolphins are not just intelligent creatures, they are guardians of technology left behind by an advanced species. This technology allows them to defend Earth's oceans from threats, including humans." A murmur rippled through the room as people exchanged skeptical glances. One official, a stern man named Greg Simmons, leaned forward in his chair. "You're saying Dolphins sank a battleship? That sounds far-fetched." "It's true," Daniel Carter chimed in, pulling up footage from their expedition. He showed clips of the Dolphins interacting with the glowing artifacts, their movements precise and deliberate. He also displayed images of the carvings found in the ruins, which depicted scenes of cooperation between dolphins and humanoid figures. They didn't act alone. They were trained or programmed to protect the oceans. Rachel Morgan added her own findings, playing recordings of the dolphin vocalizations. She explained how the clicks and whistles formed patterns resembling language, with specific commands directed at the artifacts. "They're communicating with these objects," she said. "It's not random noise. It's structured communication." Benjamin Hayes presented the artifact sample, holding it up for everyone to see. "This material is unlike anything we've encountered before. It's strong, durable, and emits low-frequency vibrations. Whoever created it knew exactly what they were doing." As the presentation unfolded, the skepticism in the room gave way to awe. The implications were staggering. Dolphins weren't simply animals. They were partners in an ancient pact, tasked with maintaining balance in Earth's oceans, and the artifacts weren't relics. They were tools, still active after thousands of years. Over the following weeks, the team worked closely with researchers and diplomats to piece together the full story. They analyzed historical records, searching for any mention of similar encounters between humans and dolphins. What they found confirmed their suspicions. There had been other incidents, though most had been dismissed as myths or accidents. One document described a fishing vessel that vanished without a trace near a coral reef, known for strange underwater activity. Another told of a submarine that lost power during a routine mission, its crew reporting eerie clicking sounds before being forced to surface. Each account hinted at the presence of something powerful and intelligent lurking beneath the waves. But it wasn't just humans who had crossed paths with the guardians of the deep. Space agencies provided reports of alien probes sent to explore Earth's oceans, only to be disabled or destroyed by coordinated attacks. These incidents had gone unreported, buried under layers of secrecy to avoid panic. Yet whispers of Earth's protected waters had reached distant stars, spreading a message loud and clear: stay away. Greg Simmons summarized the situation during a closed-door meeting. If aliens know about this, then they're respecting boundaries we didn't even realize existed. They're leaving Earth's oceans alone because they understand the consequences of crossing those lines. Laura nodded, her expression thoughtful. And maybe that's why no extraterrestrial species has ever tried to settle here. They see Earth as a shared domain, ours on land, but the dolphins in the sea. The realization sparked a shift in perspective. Humanity had always viewed itself as the dominant species on the planet, but now it became clear that others shared that title. Dolphins weren't just inhabitants of the ocean, they were its rulers, backed by knowledge and technology far beyond human comprehension. With the truth out in limited circles, efforts began to formalize recognition of dolphins as sentient beings deserving protection and respect. Diplomatic channels opened between nations and spacefaring civilizations, ensuring that Earth's oceans remained off-limits to outsiders. Marine sanctuaries expanded, giving dolphins and other aquatic life more space to thrive without interference. For Laura and her team, the work was far from over. They continued studying the artifacts and ruins, hoping to unlock more secrets about the ancient civilization that had entrusted the dolphins with such immense responsibility. Rachel focused on decoding additional dolphin vocalizations, piecing together fragments of their language to better understand their role in the alliance. Ben tested the properties of the artifact material, searching for ways to replicate its strength and durability. Daniel sifted through archives, uncovering more clues about humanity's forgotten history. Despite their progress, questions lingered. Who were the creators of the artifacts? Why had they chosen dolphins as their partners? And what did it mean for the future of Earth? Months passed, and the team grew closer to answering some of these mysteries. One day, while reviewing footage from a recent dive, Rachel noticed something new. A mural in one of the chambers depicted a scene unlike any they had seen before. In the center stood a massive figure, its body sleek and streamlined like a dolphin's but with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. Surrounding it were smaller figures, clearly humanoid, bowing in reverence. "This isn't just a partnership," Rachel said, pointing to the screen. "It's worship. These beings didn't just teach dolphins, they revered them." Daniel frowned, leaning closer to examine the image. So the dolphins weren't students, they were leaders. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. If the ancient civilization saw dolphins as gods, then their decision to leave Earth's oceans in their care made perfect sense. The dolphins weren't merely guardians, they were heirs to a legacy older than humanity itself. As word spread cautiously among governments and scientific communities, attitudes toward dolphins began to change. Laws strengthened to protect marine habitats, and funding poured into research aimed at understanding cetacean intelligence. Schools updated their curricula to include lessons about the Alliance, teaching children to view dolphins not as simple animals but as equals. Yet the biggest impact came from the message sent to the stars. Humanity officially declared Earth's oceans a protected zone, acknowledging the dolphins' role as its stewards. Alien species responded with cautious respect, reinforcing the idea that Earth's waters were sacred ground, untouched by outside forces. On the deck of the Oceanus, now docked permanently in San Francisco Bay, Laura watched the sun set over the horizon. Beside her, Rachel smiled faintly. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand them?" she asked. Laura shook her head. "Probably not. But maybe that's okay. Sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones we learn to live alongside." Far below, the dolphins swam silently, their clicks and whistles echoing through the depths. Guardians of the deep, protectors of a bond older than time itself. The Oceanus remained docked in San Francisco Bay, but its mission had evolved. The team no longer focused solely on uncovering secrets. They now worked to ensure that humanity's newfound understanding of dolphins and their role as guardians of the oceans was handled with care. Laura Bennett, Daniel Carter, Rachel Morgan, and Benjamin Hayes spent their days coordinating with scientists, policymakers, and diplomats to build a framework for coexistence, one that respected both human progress and the ancient pact protecting Earth's waters. Laura stood on the deck one morning sipping coffee as she watched fishing boats glide across the bay. The scene was peaceful, Yet she couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility weighing heavily on her shoulders. KO, world was changing because of what they had discovered. And while the revelations brought hope, they also carried risks. If word of the Dolphins' capabilities spread too quickly or fell into the wrong hands, it could lead to fear, exploitation, or even conflict. Daniel joined her, holding a folder filled with updated reports from marine sanctuaries around the globe. Things are moving forward, he said, his tone cautious but optimistic. More areas are being designated as protected zones, and enforcement is getting stricter. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Laura nodded, glancing at the folder. And the aliens, any updates there? Most species seem to respect the boundaries we've set. Daniel replied. They're keeping their distance, which is exactly what we hoped for. A few have even sent messages expressing admiration for the Dolphins. It's like they see them as equals, or maybe even superiors. Rachel approached, her arms laden with printouts of dolphin vocalizations. She had been working tirelessly to decode more of their language, piecing together fragments of meaning from the complex patterns. I think I've found something new, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. There's a phrase that keeps repeating. It translates roughly to, balance must be maintained. It's almost like a mantra. Benjamin, who had been tinkering with equipment nearby, looked up. Balance, huh? Makes sense. They've been doing this for thousands of years, keeping everything in check. No wonder they take their job so seriously. The team gathered around the table on the deck, spreading out maps, notes, and recordings. Each piece of evidence added another layer to the story they were slowly unraveling. Dolphins weren't just protectors. They were caretakers, entrusted with maintaining harmony in an ecosystem vital to life on Earth, and possibly beyond. As weeks turned into months, the team's efforts began to bear fruit. Marine conservation initiatives gained unprecedented support, with governments allocating resources to restore damaged habitats and combat pollution. Fishermen adapted to new regulations, learning to fish sustainably and avoid areas marked as sacred by the dolphins. Schools introduced programs teaching children about the importance of respecting the oceans and the creatures that called them home. But the changes weren't limited to Earth. Space agencies shared the news of the dolphins' role with interstellar communities, emphasizing the need to honor Earth's boundaries. Alien species responded with quiet reverence, some sending gifts or symbols of goodwill. One civilization transmitted a message encoded in light pulses, thanking the dolphins for their service and pledging to uphold the agreement. Laura and her team marveled at the ripple effect their discovery had created. Humanity, once seen as reckless and destructive, was now viewed as part of a larger tapestry, a planet where multiple forms of intelligence coexisted in delicate balance. For the first time, humans felt connected not only to each other, but to the vast network of life stretching across the cosmos. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Not everyone accepted the idea of dolphins as equals. Some industries resisted the new regulations, arguing that protecting marine habitats came at the cost of economic growth. Others dismissed the findings as exaggerated or fabricated, refusing to believe that animals could possess such advanced abilities. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Laura sat alone in the lab aboard the Oceanus. Her mind wandered back to the Battleship incident described in the classified files. She thought about the crew members who had survived, their accounts written off as delusions or fabrications. Now, decades later, the truth had finally come to light, not through force or aggression, but through patience and understanding. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Rachel, carrying a cup of tea. "You look like you could use this," she said, handing it to Laura with a smile. "Thanks," Laura replied, taking a sip. "I was just thinking about how far we've come and how much farther we still have to go." Rachel nodded, leaning against the counter. "It's a big responsibility, isn't it? Knowing what we know now." "It is," Laura admitted. "But it's also a privilege. We get to be part of something bigger than ourselves, something that connects us to the past, the present, and the future." In the months that followed, the team made one final expedition to the ruins beneath the Uchir, Waves. They wanted to document as much as possible before sealing off the area permanently, ensuring that the site remained undisturbed. As the submersible descended, the glowing artifacts and intricate carvings came into view once again, their beauty undiminished by time. This time, however, the dolphins approached without hesitation. They swam alongside the craft, their movements calm and deliberate. One of them paused directly in front of the camera, emitting a series of clicks and whistles. Rachel adjusted the hydrophones, capturing the sounds with precision. When they returned to the surface, Rachel played the recording back, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she analyzed the patterns. After several hours, she looked up, her expression filled with awe. "It's a message," she said softly. "They're saying thank you." The team fell silent, each member processing the weight of those two simple words. Dolphins, ancient, guardians of Earth's oceans, were acknowledging the humans' efforts to protect their domain. It was a gesture of trust, a sign that the bond between species could grow stronger if nurtured with care. Back on land, the team prepared to share their final report with the world. They crafted a narrative that balanced truth with caution, revealing enough to inspire respect for dolphins and the oceans, without exposing sensitive details about the artifacts or the ruins. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a call to action rather than a tale of mystery. People responded with enthusiasm, organizing cleanup drives, fundraising campaigns, and educational programs aimed at preserving marine ecosystems. Children drew pictures of dolphins surrounded by glowing lights, imagining them as heroes of the deep. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of cooperation between humans and dolphins, celebrating the harmony they hoped to achieve. For Laura, the journey had been transformative. She had started as a scientist seeking answers, but she ended as a guardian of a legacy far greater than herself. Standing on the deck of the Oceanus one last time, she gazed out at the horizon, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Far below, the dolphins continued their silent vigil, their clicks and whistles echoing through the depths. Guardians of the deep, protectors of a promise older than time itself. And above, humanity took its first steps toward a future built on understanding, respect, and balance.